The manila envelope sat on my truck's dashboard for 3 days before I finally opened it. And when I did, I discovered I had accidentally become a land baron in rural Montana. My name is Zachary Lawson, and I had bid on what I thought was 80 acres of timberland near Missoula for my small logging operation. Turns out, the auctioneer's mumbled words over that scratchy microphone weren't 80 but 800, and my half-drunk nod had just committed me to purchasing a property 20 times larger than I intended. The panic lasted about 15 minutes before I pulled up the county assessor's maps on my laptop. The land stretched across a massive section of rolling hills and forest, with what looked like a small residential development tucked into the southern corner. A road cut through the property, and I counted roughly 30 homes clustered around a pristine lake. I had bought someone's entire neighborhood. I drove out there the next morning in my beat-up Ford, following the GPS down Highway 93 until I turned onto Whispering Pines Road. The entrance had a fancy stone gateway with carved wooden signs announcing Whispering Pines Community, a peaceful haven. Someone had planted flowers around the base, and the whole setup screamed Homeowners Association. My stomach dropped a little. The houses were nice, upper-middle-class affairs with 2-car garages and manicured lawns. The lake sparkled in the morning sun, surrounded by a walking path and a small dock with a gazebo. This was clearly a planned community, the kind where people paid premium prices to escape the chaos of city life. And apparently, they had been paying those premium prices while squatting on my land. I parked at what looked like a community center and pulled out the deed paperwork. The property lines were clear as day. Every single house, every road, the community center, the lake, all of it sat squarely within my 800 acres. The previous owner had been some kind of investment company that had gone bankrupt during the pandemic. From what I could piece together, they had started developing this community back in 2018, sold the houses, but apparently never properly transferred the underlying land rights. The whole thing had been stuck in legal limbo, and when the company's assets went to auction to satisfy creditors, nobody else had bothered to bid. I was sitting there reading through the documents when a sharp knock on my truck window made me jump. A woman in her late 40s stood there, blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, wearing a white visor and a polo shirt with the Whispering Pines logo embroidered on it. She made an impatient rolling motion with her hand. I rolled down the window. "Can I help you? You cannot park here. This is a residents-only parking area." Her voice had that particular quality of someone used to being obeyed without question. "I am going to have to ask you to leave immediately. Actually, I think I am good here." I held up the deed. "I own this land." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me, I am Patricia Vandermeer, president of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association, and I can assure you that this is private property. Our residents own these homes and the community amenities." "The residents might own the houses," I said, "but according to the county records in this deed, I own all 800 acres underneath them. I just bought it at auction last week." Patricia's face went through several interesting color changes. "That is impossible. We have been here for 6 years. Our HOA has maintained these grounds, paid for the roads, managed the lake. You cannot just show up and claim to own everything." I shrugged. "I have got the paperwork right here if you want to see it. The previous development company went bankrupt. Their assets got auctioned off. I bought the land. This is outrageous." She pulled out her phone. "I am calling our attorney right now. You will be hearing from him very shortly. In the meantime, I need you to vacate this property." "Madam, with all due respect, you are going to need to vacate my property if we are going to be technical about it." I tried to keep my voice friendly, but something about her attitude was already getting under my skin. "But I am not looking to cause problems. I just need to figure out what the situation is here." Patricia made a show of photographing my license plate before stalking off with her phone pressed to her ear. I watched her go, then went back to reviewing the documents. This was going to be more complicated than I thought. Over the next few hours, I walked the property, following old surveyor marks and cross-referencing them with the maps on my phone. Everything checked out. The 800 acres included the entire residential development, plus another 600 acres of pristine forest beyond it. The land was worth a fortune, easily 10 times what I had paid at auction. I should have been ecstatic. Instead, I just felt a growing headache coming on. By noon, a silver Lexus pulled up next to my truck and a man in an expensive suit climbed out. He looked like he spent more on his haircut than I spent on groceries in a month. "Mr. Lawson? I am Bradford Hendricks, legal counsel for the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association." He did not offer to shake hands. "I understand you have been making some disturbing claims about property ownership." "Not claims, facts." I handed him a copy of the deed. "I bought this land at a legal county auction last week. Everything is recorded with the county assessor. You can verify it yourself." Bradford studied the paperwork, his expression growing more pinched with each page. "This is highly irregular. The homeowners here purchased their properties in good faith. They have been paying mortgages, property taxes, HOA dues. You cannot simply upend their lives. I am not trying to upend anything, I said, but I did purchase this land legally. What happened before is not my problem. I need to figure out what kind of arrangement we can come to. What sort of arrangement did you have in mind? His tone suggested he was prepared to hate whatever I said next. Well, for starters, everyone here has been living on my land without paying rent. The way I see it, that needs to be corrected. Bradford's laugh was entirely humorless. Rent? These people own their homes. They have deeds. They have deeds to structures, I said. But the land underneath those structures belongs to me. Look, I do not want to be unreasonable, but I also did not spend $150,000 to own property I cannot use. $150,000? Bradford looked like he might choke. This land is worth millions. Then you should have shown up to the auction. I was getting tired of this conversation. Look, I will give you and your HOA 1 week to come back to me with a proposal. Either we work out a lease arrangement, or we figure out how to properly transfer the land to the homeowners. But I am not just walking away from a legal purchase because it is inconvenient for you. Bradford's face had gone red. You will be hearing from us, Mr. Lawson, and I would strongly advise you not to set foot on this property again until this matter is resolved. It is my property, I reminded him. I will go wherever I want on it. He left in a spray of gravel that probably cost more to fix than my entire truck was worth. I sat there for a while, wondering if I had just made a huge mistake, but the numbers did not lie. I had bought the land fair and square. If these people had a problem, they needed to take it up with the bankrupt development company, not with me. The next few days were quiet. I spent my time working my actual logging contracts and doing research on property law. Montana had specific statutes about land rights and long-term occupation, but nothing that would supersede a legitimate deed. The HOA might try to claim adverse possession, but 6 years was not nearly long enough to meet that threshold, which required 10 years of continuous, open, and hostile use. On day 5, I got a certified letter at my office in Missoula. It was from Bradford Hendricks outlining the HOA's position. They claimed that the homeowners had purchased their properties with the understanding that they owned the land beneath them. They argued that the development company's bankruptcy should not affect those prior sales. They demanded that I quit claim my deed for $1 and a release from any liability. I showed the letter to my own attorney, a gruff old-timer named Frank Morrison who had been handling property disputes since before I was born. Frank read it twice, then dropped it on his desk. They have got nothing. The development company never properly transferred the underlying land rights to the individual buyers. Probably some corner cutting to avoid taxes or fees. It is sloppy work, but it means you have got them over a barrel. What do you think I should do? Well, what do you want out of this? Frank leaned back in his chair. You looking to be a landlord to 30 families? Because that is what leasing the land would make you. Or you could sell them the land outright, make a tidy profit. I do not know, I admitted. I never meant to buy the place to begin with, but $150,000 is real money for me. I cannot just give it away. Then do not. Frank pulled out a legal pad and started sketching numbers. Here is what I would do. Offer to sell them the land at a reasonable markup. Calculate what each homeowner would pay based on their lot size. Give them a discount if they pay up front, or let them finance it over time with interest. You will make your money back plus a decent profit, and they will get proper ownership of their land. What if they refuse? Frank grinned. Then you start charging them rent, and if they do not pay, you evict them, but it will not come to that. Once they realize you are serious and the law is on your side, they will deal. I went home and ran the numbers. The 30 homes sat on roughly 40 acres of the developed land, with the rest being the lake, roads, and common areas. If I charged each homeowner based on their lot size, I could sell them the land for about $15,000 per household. That would net me $450,000, triple my investment. Not bad for a bidding mistake. I drafted a formal proposal and had Frank review it. Then I sent copies to the HOA board and to Bradford Hendricks. The letter was simple. Each homeowner would have the option to purchase their land at $15,000, payable either in full or over 5 years at 6% interest. They had 30 days to respond. If they declined, I would begin charging monthly rent of $500 per household. The response was immediate and loud. Patricia Vandermeer showed up at my office 2 days later with an entourage. She had 3 other HOA board members with her. A stern-looking man named Gregory Walsh, who apparently managed risk assessment for an insurance company. A nervous woman named Susan Chen, who kept apologizing for the intrusion. And a younger guy named Derek Mills, who spent most of his time glaring at me like I had kicked his dog. Your proposal is completely unacceptable, Patricia announced before she was even fully through the door. We are not paying you 1 cent for land we already own. You do not own it, I said patiently. Your homes sit on it, but you never purchased the actual land. That is not my fault. This is extortion, Derek said. You are trying to shake down 30 families for your own profit. I am offering to sell you land at below market value, I corrected. You want extortion? I could charge you 6 years of back rent right now. $500 a month times 72 months times 30 households. That is over $1 million plus interest. Instead, I am giving you a very reasonable offer to purchase the land outright. Susan spoke up quietly. Some of our residents are on fixed incomes. $15,000 is a lot of money for them, which is why I am offering financing, I said. That is less than $300 a month for 5 years. It is cheaper than most car payments. We are not paying. Patricia's voice could have cut glass. We will see you in court before we give you a dime. Gregory, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat. Patricia, can I speak with you outside for a moment? They huddled in the hallway. I could hear Patricia's sharp whispers but not the actual words. When they came back, Gregory spoke to me directly. Mr. Lawson, we understand the legal position you are in. What we are asking for is more time. 30 days is not enough for most people to arrange financing or come up with $15,000. Can you give us 90 days? I considered it. 60 days. And I need a commitment from each homeowner that they intend to purchase. If they are not going to buy, I need to know so I can make other arrangements. Gregory nodded slowly. I think we can work with that. Patricia looked ready to explode, but Gregory put a hand on her arm. We will get back to you within the week with a full count of who is willing to purchase. After they left, Frank wandered into my office. You handled that well. The reasonable ones will come around. It is the zealots like Patricia you need to watch out for. She seems like the type to make this personal. Oh, she absolutely will, Frank agreed. HOA presidents like her thrive on control. You just showed her she does not have any. That will eat at her. He was right. Over the next week, I started noticing a pattern. Anonymous posts appeared on local Facebook groups warning people about predatory land scams. My business reviews suddenly got hit with 1-star ratings claiming I ran a fraudulent operation. Someone filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau saying I had threatened elderly homeowners. None of it was true, but it was all carefully crafted to be just vague enough to avoid defamation charges. I ignored it as best I could. The deadline for homeowner responses came and went, and Gregory delivered the results personally. 23 homeowners had agreed to purchase their land. 5 were still considering it. 2, including Patricia, had refused outright. Patricia is convinced she can find a legal loophole, Gregory said. She has been spending the HOA's emergency fund on additional legal consultations. Without the board's approval, I asked. Gregory looked uncomfortable. The board voted 3-1 in favor. Derek sided with her. Susan and I were against it. What about you personally? Are you going to purchase your land? I already sent in my paperwork, he said. I ran the numbers. Even if we won a lawsuit, it would cost more in legal fees than just buying the land from you. This is the smart play. Over the next month, I worked with Frank to process the purchases. Most people opted for the financing plan, which meant setting up proper loan documents and payment schedules. It was tedious work, but the money started flowing in. Each signed contract was another household secured, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. Patricia and her holdouts were becoming increasingly isolated. The other homeowners were getting frustrated with her for wasting HOA funds on pointless legal battles. At one particularly heated HOA meeting, which I attended as the landowner, Susan actually called for a vote to remove Patricia as president. She is bankrupting us, Susan said, her voice shaking but determined. We have spent almost $30,000 on attorneys who keep telling us the same thing. Mr. Lawson has a legitimate claim. Meanwhile, our community pool needs repairs and we cannot afford them because Patricia has drained our reserves. We are fighting for our rights, Patricia shot back. If we cave to this man's demands, we are setting a precedent that anyone can come along and steal our homes. He is not stealing our homes, Gregory said. He owns the land. He has been more than fair about selling it to us at a reasonable price. You are all cowards, Derek chimed in. We should be standing together against this. Standing together to do what? Another homeowner called out. Lose a lawsuit we cannot win? The vote was called. Patricia was removed as HOA president by a margin of 23-5. Gregory was elected as her replacement. Patricia stormed out of the meeting and Derek followed her. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I drove out to the property to meet with Gregory about some paperwork. As I approached the community center, I noticed something was off. The flower beds around the entrance monument had been torn up, and someone had spray-painted "Thief" across the stone gateway in red letters. My stomach sank. Gregory was already there, looking at the damage with a police officer. He waved me over. Officer Torres, this is Zachary Lawson. He is the property owner. Officer Torres was a solid guy in his 30s with the patient expression of someone who had dealt with way too much neighborhood drama. Mr. Lawson, any idea who might have vandalized your property? I have got some suspicions, I said carefully. There has been some tension with a few residents who are not happy about the land situation. Patricia Vandermeer and Derek Mills, Gregory said bluntly. They have been making threats about making him pay for what he is doing to the community. Officer Torres wrote that down. We will look into it. In the meantime, you might want to consider security cameras. I did better than that. I hired a private security company to patrol the property at night and installed cameras at all the main entrances. It cost me a chunk of change, but I was not about to let someone destroy my investment. The cameras paid for themselves within a week. We caught Derek Mills on video at 2 in the morning, pouring sugar into the gas tank of my truck, which I had left parked near the community center during a late meeting. The footage was crystal clear. His face, his actions, everything. Officer Torres arrested him the next morning. Derek tried to claim he was just checking on the property, but the video did not lie. He was charged with criminal mischief and vandalism. His court date was set for 6 weeks out. Patricia went quiet after that. Too quiet. I did not trust it. My instincts proved correct when I got a call from the county assessor's office. Someone had filed a claim alleging that my deed was fraudulent, that the auction had been improperly conducted, and that the land should revert to county control. The signature on the claim was Patricia's. Frank hit the roof when I showed him the paperwork. This is harassment, pure and simple. The auction was completely legitimate. She is just trying to tie you up in bureaucratic red tape. We filed a motion to dismiss and provided all the documentation proving the auction was legal. The county assessor's office reviewed everything and rejected Patricia's claim within 2 weeks. They even sent her a letter warning that filing false claims was a serious offense. But Patricia was not done. Next, she filed a lawsuit claiming that I had made fraudulent misrepresentations about my ownership, that I was running an illegal rental operation without proper licensing, and that I had caused emotional distress to the community. The suit demanded $500,000 in damages. Frank actually laughed when he read it. This is garbage. It will get thrown out in summary judgment. But we still have to respond, which means filing fees and my time. Can I countersue for harassment? Absolutely. And we will. The legal battle dragged on for 3 months. Patricia represented herself after Bradford Hendricks withdrew from the case, citing ethical concerns about frivolous litigation. Her court filings were rambling and emotional, full of accusations but light on actual legal theory. Meanwhile, more homeowners completed their land purchases. I was now at 27 out of 30. Only Patricia, Derek, and one elderly couple who could not afford the purchase remained. The elderly couple, Harold and Martha Peterson, broke my heart. They were in their 70s, living on Social Security, and they had bought their house thinking it was their forever home. They could not afford $15,000, and their fixed income would not support a monthly payment plan. I met with them privately at their home. They served me coffee and homemade cookies, and Martha apologized repeatedly for the trouble. We did not know about any of this, Harold said. We thought we owned our land. Now we are being told we might lose our home. You are not going to lose your home, I said. I am not in the business of throwing elderly people out on the street. Let me ask you something. How much can you afford to pay? They looked at each other. Maybe $5,000, Martha said quietly. We have some savings, but we need to keep most of it for medical expenses. $5,000 works, I said. And no monthly payments. You pay what you can afford and the land is yours. Martha started crying. Harold gripped my hand so hard it hurt. You are a good man, he said. Not like what Patricia has been saying about you. What has Patricia been saying? That you are trying to steal our homes, that you are a con artist, that we should never negotiate with you. Harold shook his head. But Susan and Gregory told us the truth. You have been fair with everyone. I left the Petersons feeling better about the whole situation. 28 down, 2 to go. Derek took a plea deal on the vandalism charges. He was sentenced to community service and ordered to pay restitution for the damage to my truck. The judge also issued a restraining order keeping him at least 100 yards away from me. He sold his house 2 weeks later and moved out of Whispering Pines. Good riddance. That left only Patricia. The judge threw out her lawsuit exactly as Frank predicted. Not only did he dismiss it with prejudice, meaning she could not refile, but he also ordered her to pay my legal fees, which had climbed to nearly $15,000. Patricia filed for bankruptcy the next day. I thought about letting it go. She was clearly in over her head, financially ruined by her obsession with fighting me. But Frank convinced me that setting a precedent was important. If you let her off the hook, every other crank with a grudge will think they can harass you without consequences, he said. Make her pay. We pursued the judgment. Patricia's wages were garnished. She had to sell her house to cover her debts. The new owners, a nice young couple with a baby, were happy to purchase the land for the standard $15,000. Patricia moved into an apartment in Missoula. I saw her once at a grocery store, and she turned and walked the other way. I felt a mixture of pity and relief. The whole ordeal had been exhausting. With all 30 properties now properly transferred, I turned my attention to the rest of the land. The 600 acres of undeveloped forest was prime real estate. I could have sold it to developers for millions, but something about the Petersons situation stuck with me. Instead, I worked with the HOA to create a conservation easement. The forest would remain undeveloped, preserved as a natural buffer around the community. The homeowners got to keep their peaceful setting, and I got a significant tax write-off. I also donated 20 acres to the county for a public park, which earned me some positive press for a change. The logging business was going well, and I did not need to squeeze every dollar out of the land. Sometimes being reasonable was worth more than being ruthlessly profitable. 6 months after the final property transferred, Gregory invited me to a community barbecue. I was hesitant at first, unsure of my reception, but I decided to go. To my surprise, people were friendly. They thanked me for working with them, for being fair when I could have been difficult. Harold Peterson cornered me by the grill. "I have been telling everyone what you did for us, how you could have forced us out but did not." "I just did what was right," I said. "That is rarer than you think." He clapped me on the shoulder. "You are welcome here anytime." I stayed for a few hours, eating burgers and making small talk with people who had once viewed me as the enemy. It felt good. The whole situation had started as an accident, a mistake in an auction house. But it had taught me something about the kind of person I wanted to be. Later that night, I sat by the lake with a beer, watching the sun set over the mountains. The water was glass smooth, reflecting orange and pink clouds. Somewhere in the distance, a loon called out its haunting song. My phone buzzed. A text from Frank. "Just got word. Patricia's bankruptcy was finalized. She is out of your hair for good." I typed back a simple thanks and put the phone away. The whole ordeal had taken nearly a year from start to finish. I had been threatened, vandalized, sued, and dragged through the mud on social media. But I had also learned that standing firm on what was right and legal did not mean being cruel. There was a middle ground between being a pushover and being ruthless. The 800 acres were mine, legally and ethically. The homeowners had their land now too, properly deeded and secured. The forest was protected. Everyone had gotten what they needed, even if it was not what they originally wanted. I finished my beer and stood up to head back to my truck. A family was walking by on the lake path, 2 kids running ahead while their parents strolled hand in hand. One of the kids waved at me and I waved back. This had been a strange chapter in my life, but it was closed now. I had other properties to manage, logging contracts to fulfill, a business to run. Whispering Pines was just one piece of a larger puzzle. As I drove out through the stone gateway, now repaired and repainted, I glanced in my rearview mirror. The community looked peaceful in the fading light. 30 families were living their lives, secure in their homes, on land they now truly owned. And I had a bank account that was significantly healthier than it had been a year ago. Not a bad outcome for a bidding mistake. The Montana landscape rolled by as I headed back toward Missoula. I thought about calling my brother to tell him the whole crazy story, but it was late and he would probably be asleep. It could wait until morning. My phone rang just as I hit the highway. Unknown number. I normally did not answer those, but something made me pick up. "Is this Zachary Lawson?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "Speaking, this is Jennifer Morrison from Mountain West Property Auctions. I am calling because we have another property coming up next month that might interest you. 820 acres in Flathead County near Kalispell. Given your successful purchase at our last auction, I thought you might want first notice." I laughed out loud. "You know what? Send me the details. I will take a look." "Wonderful. I will email you the prospectus tomorrow." "And Mr. Lawson, this property is unencumbered. No HOAs, no developments, just raw land." "Even better," I said. After we hung up, I cranked up the radio and let the miles disappear beneath my tires. The whole experience with Whispering Pines had been a headache, a legal nightmare, and occasionally a moral quandary. But it had also been profitable, educational, and ultimately kind of satisfying. Would I do it again? Maybe. But next time I would definitely read the auction paperwork more carefully before raising my hand. The lights of Missoula appeared on the horizon, and I felt the tension of the past year finally releasing from my shoulders. Whatever came next, I was ready for it. I had learned how to navigate property law, stand up to bullies, and find compromises that worked for everyone involved. Not bad for a logger who just wanted to expand his timber holdings. I made it back to my apartment around 10, exhausted but satisfied. Tomorrow I would start looking at that Flathead County property. Maybe visit the site, check the timber quality, see if there were any hidden developments I needed to worry about. But tonight I was just going to sleep well, knowing that the Whispering Pines saga was finally, completely, totally finished, or so I thought. 3 weeks later I got another certified letter. My heart sank when I saw the return address. Patricia Vandermeer. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. "Mr. Lawson, I wanted to apologize for everything I put you through. I was wrong. I let my pride and my need for control turn me into someone I did not recognize. You were fair when you did not have to be, and I responded with cruelty and pettiness. I am working on myself, getting therapy, trying to be better. I know I cannot undo the damage, but I wanted you to know that I am sorry. Sincerely, Patricia. I read it twice, then set it on my kitchen counter. An apology was the last thing I expected from her. Part of me wanted to be cynical, to assume she had some angle, but the words felt genuine. I thought about responding, but ultimately decided to let it be. Some bridges were burned too thoroughly to rebuild, and that was okay. Her apology was for her own healing, not for reopening a dialogue between us. I filed the letter away with all the other paperwork from the case and turned my attention to the future. The Flathead County property turned out to be perfect. No complications, no hidden developments, just pristine timberland with good road access. I bought it at auction for a reasonable price, actually paying attention to what I was bidding on this time. Life moved on. I expanded my logging operation, hired 3 new employees, and bought a much nicer truck to replace the one Derek had vandalized. Business was good. The economy was recovering, construction was booming, and demand for quality timber was high. Every few months, I would drive past Whispering Pines on my way to check on some other properties in the area. The community always looked peaceful and well-maintained. The HOA, under Gregory's leadership, was apparently doing a good job managing things. No more drama, no more legal battles. Just a quiet neighborhood by a pretty lake, exactly what it was supposed to be. One afternoon in early fall, almost 18 months after the whole thing started, I stopped at the community center to use their bathroom on my way back from a long day in the field. Gregory was there, organizing some kind of autumn festival. "Zachary, good to see you. You should come to the festival this weekend. We have got food trucks, live music, activities for kids." "I might do that," I said. "How is everything going?" "Really well. We finally got that pool repair done. Added some new playground equipment. The community is thriving." He paused. "I never properly thanked you for how you handled everything. You could have made our lives hell, but you chose to work with us instead." "We all got what we needed," I said. "That is how it should work." Gregory smiled. "Not everyone thinks that way. We were lucky it was you who bought the land and not some corporate developer who would have bulldozed everything." I had not thought about it like that, but he was right. If a big development company had purchased the property, they would have probably forced everyone out and built something entirely new. The individual homeowners would have been seen as obstacles, not people. "I am glad it worked out," I said simply. The festival was actually fun. I went that Saturday, tried some excellent barbecue from a local food truck, and listened to a surprisingly good bluegrass band. Kids were running around with their faces painted, and the whole community had turned out for the event. Martha Peterson spotted me and came over with a paper plate full of baked goods. "Try these. I made them this morning." I took a chocolate chip cookie and bit into it, still warm and perfectly chewy. "These are incredible. Harold and I wanted to do something to thank you," she said. "We know you took a loss on our property to help us out. That meant everything to us. You do not need to thank me with cookies, though I definitely appreciate them. It is not just cookies." She gestured around at the festival. "You saved our community, all of us. We thought we were going to lose everything, and instead everyone got to stay. That is because of you." I did not know what to say to that. I had been focused on the legal and financial aspects of the whole situation, viewing it as a business transaction that needed to be resolved fairly. But for these people, it had been about their homes, their lives, their sense of security. The weight of that hit me differently than it had before. "I am just glad everyone is settled and happy now," I managed. Martha patted my arm. "You are a good man, Zachary Lawson. Do not let anyone tell you different." I stayed at the festival for another hour, then headed home as the sun was setting. The drive back to Missoula was beautiful, the fall colors just starting to show on the mountainsides. My phone rang as I pulled into town. It was Frank. "Got some news you might be interested in," he said. "Remember that lawsuit Patricia filed against the original development company?" "Wait, she filed another lawsuit?" "Not another one. Apparently she had filed this one months before you bought the property. It just got settled. The development company's insurance carrier agreed to pay out to all the homeowners who were affected by the improper land transfers. Everyone who bought a house in Whispering Pines is getting about $20,000 each," I whistled. "That is a nice windfall. It gets better. Since you are now the landowner and you had to deal with the mess they created, you are also named in the settlement. You are getting $150,000. I nearly drove off the road." "What?" "Yeah. The insurance company wanted to settle everything at once and avoid future claims. Your purchase actually strengthened the case because it proved that the land had never been properly transferred. You will get the check in about 6 weeks." After we hung up, I pulled over and just sat there for a minute. The property that had cost me $150,000 had now generated over $600,000 in land sales, plus another $150,000 from the lawsuit settlement, plus the tax benefits from the conservation easement. A mistake at an auction had turned into the best investment I had ever made. I laughed until my sides hurt. The universe had a weird sense of humor sometimes. When I finally calmed down, I called my brother and told him the whole insane story from beginning to end. He listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. "So let me get this straight," he said when I finished. "You accidentally bought a neighborhood, got into a war with a crazy HOA president, almost got your truck destroyed, ended up helping a bunch of families secure their homes, and made over $500,000 in the process. That about sums it up. You should write a book. Nobody would believe it." Fair point. We talked for another hour about what I should do with the money. I had some ideas already. Expand the business, definitely. Maybe buy that equipment I had been eyeing. Set aside a good chunk for retirement. Donate some to local charities. Life had gotten weird for a while, but it had worked out better than I could have imagined. The settlement check arrived exactly when Frank said it would. I deposited it, paid his fees and the various other expenses from the whole ordeal, and still had a substantial amount left over. I bought the new equipment for my logging operation and hired 2 more employees to handle the increased workload. I also set up a scholarship fund for kids in rural Montana communities who wanted to go into forestry or sustainable land management. It was not huge, maybe $5,000 a year, but it felt right to put some of the money towards something meaningful. The first anniversary of my final meeting with the Whispering Pines HOA came and went without fanfare. I was too busy working to pay much attention to the date, but Gregory sent me a card thanking me again and inviting me to their holiday party in December. I went to the party, mostly out of curiosity. The community center was decorated with lights and garland, and someone had set up an impressive spread of food and drinks. People were friendly and welcoming. A few of them pulled me aside to thank me personally for how I had handled everything. It felt surreal, being thanked for something that had started as my own mistake. Harold Peterson found me by the punch bowl. "Martha wanted me to give you this." He handed me a wrapped package. Inside was a framed photograph of the lake at sunset, taken from the walking path. It was beautiful, perfectly capturing the serene quality that made Whispering Pines special. "She took that herself," Harold said proudly. "Thought you might like to have a reminder of what you helped preserve." I looked at the photo, then at the people around me laughing and celebrating together. These were not just homeowners or HOA members. They were a community, and they were still here because a series of accidents and decisions had worked out in everyone's favor. "Thank you," I said to Harold. "This means a lot." I hung the photo in my office the next day. It was a good reminder of what could happen when people approached problems with fairness and flexibility instead of just thinking about their own interests. Not that I was claiming to be some kind of saint. I had made a profit, a significant one. But I had also made sure that profit did not come at the expense of people's homes and security. There was a balance to be struck, and somehow I had managed to find it. Winter came hard to Montana that year. I spent most of my time managing my logging crews and making sure everyone stayed safe in the harsh conditions. The business was doing better than ever, and I was starting to think about opening a second office in Kalispell to handle the northern properties. In late January, I got an email from Jennifer Morrison at the auction house. Another property was coming up, this one in Lincoln County. Over 1,000 acres, mostly forested, with a small lake and good access. No HOAs, her email promised. I checked personally. I laughed and forwarded it to Frank, asking him to do due diligence before the auction. I was not going to make the same mistakes twice. The property checked out clean. I bid carefully, paid attention to what I was actually bidding on, and won it for a fair price. No drama, no complications, just a straightforward business transaction, exactly how it should be. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The business grew steadily. I bought a house outside Missoula with a view of the mountains. Started dating a teacher I met at a friend's barbecue. Nothing dramatic, just steady progress and relative peace. Every few months I would drive past Whispering Pines and see the community thriving. New families moved in as older ones moved out. The HOA maintained everything beautifully. The lake sparkled in the summer sun, froze solid in the winter cold, and thawed again each spring. Gregory stepped down as HOA president after 3 years, and Susan took over. She sent me an email letting me know and thanking me again for everything. I sent her a congratulatory message back and meant it. The whole saga had become a story I would tell at parties when people asked about my most interesting business deal. It got laughs every time, especially the part about accidentally bidding on 10 times more land than I intended. But it worked out. I would always finish. Sometimes mistakes lead you exactly where you needed to be. 5 years after I bought the land, I was invited back to Whispering Pines for their anniversary celebration. The community was marking 10 years since the first families moved in, and they wanted me there as a guest of honor. I almost declined. It felt weird being celebrated for something that had started as an accident and turned into a complicated mess. But something made me accept. The celebration was bigger than I expected. They had rented a tent, hired a catering company, and invited everyone who had ever lived in the community. There must have been 200 people there. Gregory gave a speech about the community's history, and to my surprise, he spent a significant portion talking about the land ownership crisis and how it had been resolved. "We were scared," he said honestly. "We thought we were going to lose everything." But Zachary Lawson could have exploited that fear. He could have demanded anything he wanted, and we would have had no choice but to comply. Instead, he chose to be fair. He chose to work with us, and because of that, we are all still here today. People applauded. I felt my face getting hot. Then Martha Peterson stood up. She was frailer than I remembered, but her voice was strong. "I want to add something. Zachary did not just sell us land. He gave Harold and me our dignity. He could have forced us out of our home, but he found a way to let us stay. That is the measure of a person's character." More applause. I wanted to sink into the ground. After the speeches, people came up to talk to me. Some I recognized, many I did not. They all had stories about what Whispering Pines meant to them, how grateful they were that things had worked out. I stayed until late in the evening watching kids play by the lake while their parents socialized. The sun set in a blaze of orange and gold, and the first stars appeared overhead. Susan found me by the water. "Thank you for coming. It means a lot to everyone." "I am glad I did," I said, and meant it. "Can I ask you something?" She looked out at the lake. "Did you ever regret buying the land, with all the trouble it caused?" I thought about it carefully. No, it was complicated and stressful, but it taught me a lot. About people, about fairness, about finding solutions instead of just asserting rights. I am a better person because of it. Susan nodded. "We are all better because of it. You could have been our worst nightmare, but you chose to be something different." We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the lake darken as night fell. The party continued behind us, voices and laughter mixing with music from someone's portable speaker. I thought about the chain of events that had led to this moment. A mumbled word at an auction, a mistaken nod, 800 acres instead of 80, an entire community sitting on land they did not own. Any of those things could have gone differently. If I had heard the auctioneer correctly, if someone else had bid higher, if the development company had not gone bankrupt, if the land transfers had been done properly in the first place. But they had not, and here we were. "I should probably head out," I said eventually. "Long drive back to Missoula." Susan gave me a hug. "Come back anytime. You will always be welcome here." I made my way to my truck, stopping to say goodbye to various people along the way. Harold and Martha insisted on sending me home with leftover cake. Gregory shook my hand firmly and told me I had set an example he tried to follow in his own business dealings. As I drove away from Whispering Pines for what I figured would be the last time, I looked back in my mirror one final time. The community lights twinkled against the dark Montana night, a little oasis of civilization in the vast wilderness. I had bought the land by accident, fought to protect my legal rights, and somehow ended up being celebrated as a hero. Life was strange that way. The road ahead was dark, illuminated only by my headlights. I turned on the radio and let the miles roll by, thinking about everything that had happened and everything I had learned. Sometimes the best outcomes come from the worst mistakes. Sometimes being fair is more profitable than being ruthless. And sometimes when you accidentally buy a neighborhood, the best thing you can do is help them buy it from you. I made it home close to midnight, exhausted but content. Tomorrow I would be back to work, managing my crews and my properties and my steadily growing business. But tonight, I would sleep well knowing that somewhere in the Montana hills, 30 families were living their lives in homes that truly belonged to them, on land they actually owned, in a community that had survived against the odds. And I had been part of making that happen, accident or not. Not a bad legacy for a logger who just wanted to buy some timberland.